In 1888, London was a city of dualities. This wasn't more evident than in the contrast between the East and West Ends. The West End was undergoing urban gentrification and was home to fine restaurants, theatre, and upperclassmen. The East End, by contrast, was ridden with slums, populated with workhouses and common lodging houses. This was the world of the underclass. Relief could be found in a bottle of gin or a common prostitute who could be bought for no more than a loaf of stale bread. But beyond the poverty and decay, or rather amongst it, a new evil was afoot. In London's East End, in the autumn of 1888, a serial killer was on the loose before the term serial killer was even coined. The canonical or established victims were Mary Ann Paul E. Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. All five worked as prostitutes in London's East End at the time of the killings. The killer had established a pen name for himself in a letter he sent to the press. The killer called himself Jack the Ripper. That name would go on to live in infamy still over a century later. The killer would elude capture, though several suspects would be named. The police handled the investigation relatively well for the technology that was present at the time. House-to-house inquiries were conducted, and forensic material collected and examined. Tactics like these were employed all over Whitechapel, but to no avail. Let's see if astrology can answer some questions and find out possible murderer personality traits, motive, and social conditions in the East End at the time of the murders. I use those 5 victims stated because they are the confirmed and established victims, hence canonical. Since time of death is relatively unknown for the canonical first victim, I shall use confirmed time victim's body was discovered. According to reports, the body was still fresh. The time was 3:40 a.m. on August 31st, 1888. In London, United Kingdom. The charters cast for and named Jack the Ripper Crime Spree, August 31st, 1888, 3:40 a.m. GMT, London, United Kingdom. And the source is www.jack-the-ripper.org/jack-the-victim-mary-nichols.htm. We start with Uranus in the 3rd house of written communication. Equinox, ascendant in Leo. Leo is ruled by the Sun. Judging from this aspect, I believe this man craved publicity and wanted to be in the spotlight. Uranus in the 3rd house again suggests unusual faculties regarding communication. The killer taunted the press with letters. Curiously, Uranus sits in harmonious Libra. I believe this man was able to blend in with unusual surroundings. This hints at someone who possibly knew the immediate neighborhood well. Another note on Uranus in Libra. This could indicate possible interruption of harmonious structures. There was discontent with the unpopular British monarchy at the time. If this is true, this could point to a possible cover-up if the Duke really was involved. Prince Edward had already embarrassed the Queen with his less than discreet private life. One more scandal regarding the family could have possibly brought the monarchy down. If Prince Edward's son, the Duke, was involved, then that would and found out, then that would certainly be the case. This is just a possibility in relation to the times. Vigilante groups stalked the East End looking for anyone who aroused suspicion. Anyone who simply didn't fit in was suspect. This is just a possibility judging from the position of Uranus. This was the first time a serial killer was given international coverage as well. This exposure alone prompted hundreds of letters. Uranus in the third house again. Unusual. Although no proof of the letters were the killer's own, they were to be a lasting legacy around the globe. Once again, Uranus, planet of change, reform, and rebellion, sits in Libra, sign of causes and fair justice. The fear created by the killings underlined a paranoia that was already in the city. Xenophobia and anti-Semitism found a voice in some explanations for the killings, both official facts and public opinion. That in turn placed blame on foreigners and Jews. The fear of an anti-Semitic riot was strong enough at the time for police to keep quiet about a message against Jews found scrawled on a wall near one murder scene. There was unusual letter communication again, Uranus in the third house, but the police wanted to keep the peace, in Libra of course, for a supposed cause for justice, however perverse. Another Uranus and Libra connection here. The Dear Boss letter was the letter which the killer penned himself Jack the Ripper, and the name stuck. In that letter, a cryptic reference was made hinting at the killer being a member of the police force. Uranus, Libra, unusual justice again. Uranus in Libra, Equinox, Saturn and Leo in the 12th house of endings and prisons. Saturn is the limiting planet. Although the case became a media spectacle, Leo, the killer was never caught, Saturn, thus placing limitations on manpower and the prisons that would hold the killer. Modern investigators believe the killer himself might have been interviewed by police at that time, but let the killer go considering all people who were questioned at the time in Whitechapel. The police's inability to catch the killer led to citizens forming local vigilante mobs. Uranus, unusual justice in Libra, strikes again, here for a cause. One could say a mini-revolution took place, along with attention brought to the East End slums with reform in the ensuing decades. Uranus is a generational planet, and was in Libra from approximately 1884 to 1891. Curiously, Mars sits conjunct Jupiter in Scorpio in the 4th house. This suggests a somewhat violent sexual motive, or revenge-type murder on his home turf. Whoever did this, I believe, like I said, knew the area well at the time the first murder happened. Mars in Scorpio suggests violent sexual attacks, conjunct Jupiter, saying he either killed a lot more than was attributed to him, or he used prostitutes regularly. This could also mean there was a vast quantity of sexual and sensual exploits available to this man, and this may describe his crime spree. Violent Mars is situated in sensual Scorpio, ruling prostitution. This position clearly states who he killed. He killed prostitutes. Keep in mind a sexual motive doesn't necessarily mean sexually aroused by the actual act of killing. Things could have gone bad during sex at one point, and these could have been retribution, Scorpio again, killings. This was the case for Long Island serial killer Joel Rifkin when Rifkin admitted things went bad and he strangled a victim of his when caught. No one knows for sure what went on in the killer we call Jack the Ripper's mind. One can only speculate. Jupiter in Scorpio and Aquarius sitting on the cusp of the 7th house suggests he seeked out the company of unusual avant-garde women in quantity. Curiously, Neptune sits opposite Jupiter, almost at the midheaven. This suggests at the same time a cloud of confusion crept over the killer as he went about his depraved acts. This was a man who possibly didn't know the consequences of what he was doing, or suggests a depreciated mental state. Mars sits opposite Pluto. In astrological lore, Pluto is the great seducer. Also, this opposition suggests killing prostitutes became an obsession for him, possibly. Gemini, sign of the twins, suggests a possible multiple or split personality disorder here, although not certain. Mars conjunct Jupiter, again in the sexual sign of Scorpio, that is, he killed multiple prostitutes, opposite Neptune conjunct Pluto, confusion and obsession. In Gemini, possible multiple personality, sign of the twins, is a recipe for a serial killer in the making. Here at last we are given possible motive and insight into the killer's mind. That conjunction opposition combination is rare. Mars also rules knives in intimate Scorpio. A knife is more intimate than a gun. The midheaven sits in Taurus. This suggests a comfortable existence, or at least comfortable surroundings. Remember, surroundings could mean immediate area, not just the home. At the time of the first recorded murder, possibly a hackney carriage was used. Wendy Sturgis, a BBC reporter who researched the murders, had a theory that this may have been a moneyed person. Confusion was there though, so some psychological problems were present. Opposite Scorpio again, sign of money. Oppositions can work together as well as butt heads. On a last note, the part of fortune also sits in Gemini. Perhaps his split personality caused him to disassociate to a calm disposition and therefore elude capture. The Ripper case still remains open to this day.